The night Manhattan glittered like 1,000 promises was the same night Evelyn Hartman's world quietly fractured. Bradley Coleman, her husband of 12 years, stepped out of a black Mercedes S-Class in front of a Beverly Hills penthouse, miles away from where Evelyn believed he was. Inside, warm light spilled across marble floors, and soft jazz drifted through the air while he loosened his tie with a grin meant for someone else. Zoe Lennox. Her laugh floated like champagne bubbles. Light, bright, dangerous. Back in Manhattan, Evelyn sat alone on their Park Avenue balcony, clutching a cooling mug of tea as wind from the skyline brushed her hair. She checked her iPhone again. No text, no call, no explanation. Bradley always came home late, but tonight the silence felt different, sharper, heavier. Like something inside the universe had already decided she didn't deserve the truth. When the clock hit midnight, Evelyn told herself not to overthink. She'd done that too much lately, since her father's passing, since the layoff rumors at work, since Bradley's sudden distance. She whispered, "He's just busy," even as her voice cracked under the weight of a lie she wished was true. On the other side of the country, Bradley poured 2 glasses of aged scotch. Zoe's dress shimmered under the soft penthouse lighting as she leaned toward him. Not shy, not hesitant, familiar, rehearsed, expected. No one watching would ever guess he had a wife waiting in a quiet Manhattan apartment, trying to keep her chest from collapsing in on itself. Because at that same moment, Evelyn's phone buzzed, just once, a hospital billing reminder. Her father's final medical debt, another weight she carried alone because Bradley had stopped asking how she was months ago. She stared at the message, unaware that across the country, her husband was laughing, not thinking of her at all. By 3:17 a.m., the Mercedes rolled up to Park Avenue again. Bradley stepped out, smelling of expensive liquor and selfishness, slipping into the apartment with the ease of a man who believed consequences were myths. He didn't notice Evelyn sitting on the couch with tear-stained eyes. He didn't notice her shrinking into herself as he muttered, "Why are you awake?" He didn't know that tonight, this night, would become the final breaking point, a night that would come back to haunt him, strip him, expose him, and bury everything he'd built. Because betrayal is never a single moment. It's a fuse. In his had already been lit. What he didn't realize was that Evelyn wasn't the one about to lose everything. He was. Bold cliffhanger. And before sunrise, a message would arrive that would turn his secret into the weapon that would destroy him. Morning sunlight crept across the Park Avenue apartment, revealing everything Bradley wished to keep hidden and everything Evelyn wished she could unsee. She sat at the dining table, still in last night's clothes, her eyes swollen but steady. The silence between them was colder than the marble floor beneath her bare feet. Bradley opened the fridge, grabbed a sparkling water, and muttered without looking at her, "We're not doing this at 6 in the morning." Evelyn's breath hitched. "We're doing this," she whispered, "because you didn't come home." He shrugged, annoyed. "I told you, I had meetings." Her fingers tightened around her ceramic mug. "In Beverly Hills?" That made him pause, just enough to confirm what she dreaded. A flicker, fear, irritation, calculation, crossed his face, then vanished beneath the arrogance he wore like armor. "You're being dramatic again, Ev. It's exhausting." The words hit harder than any confession. Again, exhausting, as if her hurt was an inconvenience he had to manage. Evelyn rose slowly. She walked to the counter and placed a small folded receipt beside his drink, the one she found in his blazer pocket while doing laundry. Tiffany & Co., a custom necklace. Initials, ZL. The blood drained from Bradley's face before he forced a laugh too loud for the quiet kitchen. "You went through my things. You lied to my face." Her voice cracked, but did not break. "I had to find the truth somewhere." He slammed the fridge door shut. "You're imagining things. Zoe's a colleague. That necklace is for a client appreciation event. You don't buy diamonds for clients." Her whisper was soft, but carried the weight of every sleepless night she'd swallowed alone. Bradley stepped closer, lowering his voice to a patronizing growl. "You always do this. Twist things. Overreact. No wonder you're stuck where you are at work." There it was. the knife she never saw coming. Not just betrayal, humiliation. Her chest tightened. The room blurred. For a moment she thought she might collapse, but something inside her, something small, trembling, but alive, held her upright. She looked him in the eyes. "I know what you did, and I know it wasn't the first time." He froze, but Evelyn wasn't finished. Because at that exact moment, her iPhone buzzed on the table. A single notification, a name she hadn't seen in years. Nicholas Grant. "Evelyn, we need to talk. It's urgent." A message that would unravel everything Bradley thought he controlled. Evelyn stared at the notification glowing on her iPhone screen, her pulse thundering in her ears. Nicholas Grant. A name she hadn't heard in nearly a decade. A name tied to a version of herself she thought had died long before her marriage. Bradley scoffed when he saw her expression shift. "Who the hell is that?" His voice was low, territorial, the tone of a man who had the audacity to betray her, yet still believed she belonged to him. Evelyn didn't answer. She stepped away from him, her trembling fingers unlocking her phone. The message preview expanded. "Evelyn, I'm in Manhattan for a meeting. Something came across my desk. It's about Bradley. Can we talk privately?" Her breath caught. Nicholas wasn't the type to send vague warnings. He wasn't the type to involve himself in someone's marriage. Back when she met him at an industry conference years ago, he had been the rare kind of man who spoke softly but carried an air of precision. Someone who chose every word with intent. If Nicholas said something was wrong, it was. Bradley snatched the phone from her hand so fast she gasped. "What are you doing talking to him?" "It's a message, not a conversation," she said, reaching for it. But he held it just out of reach, jaw tightening. "You think you can walk around playing victim and talking to whatever guy pops back into your life? Unreal." The hypocrisy stung like acid. She stepped back, sudden clarity sliding into place like a blade being sheathed. "You're scared," she whispered. Bradley blinked, thrown off. "What?" "Your voice, your face, the way you grabbed my phone." She steadied herself. "You're scared of what Nicholas knows?" He opened his mouth and closed it, an involuntary flinch betraying what he didn't want her to see. Guilt, exposure, fear. Before Bradley could respond, her phone buzzed again, this time on the counter, having slipped from his grasp. Another message. "Nicholas, please, Evelyn, this is bigger than you think." Bradley lunged for the phone, but Evelyn was faster. She snatched it, clutching it to her chest. "I'm meeting him," she said. "The hell you are. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore." For the first time in their entire marriage, her voice wasn't shaky. It wasn't soft. It wasn't begging. It was steel. And Bradley realized too late that the woman he thought he could control was no longer choosing fear. Bold cliffhanger. Because Nicholas wasn't reaching out as a friend. He was reaching out as a man who had uncovered Bradley's darkest secret. By late afternoon, Manhattan's winter sky had shifted into a pale gray, the kind that made the city feel colder than the temperature suggested. Evelyn stood outside a quiet cafe on Madison Avenue, her breath forming soft clouds as she waited. Her hands trembled, not from the wind, but from the weight of what Nicholas might reveal. When he stepped out of a sleek black town car, she barely recognized him. Nicholas Grant was no longer the reserved young analyst she once knew. He carried the presence of a man who had rebuilt himself from the ground up. Precise suit, calm eyes, and an energy that made people straighten instinctively when he passed. "Evelyn," he said softly, his voice holding both warmth and concern. "It's been a long time." She forced a smile she didn't feel. Long enough for everything to fall apart. Inside the cafe, they slid into a corner booth. Her palms were damp. She wasn't sure if she was ready for whatever truth Nicholas had flown across the country to deliver. He didn't start with small talk. "Evelyn, I came across financial filings tied to Bradley. Filings that involve your father's pension fund." Her heart stopped. My father's?" she breathed. Nicholas nodded, sliding a folder across the table. "I didn't know you were connected to him until I saw your maiden name on the medical paperwork. Evelyn, Bradley diverted money from that fund years ago. It forced restructuring. It's partly why your father's treatment costs skyrocketed. The cafe noise faded into a distant hum. Evelyn stared at the documents, her vision swimming. Her father had apologized countless times for being a burden. He had cried over how expensive his care had become. He had blamed himself. Bradley had let him. No, this can't be real, Evelyn whispered, shutting her eyes as tears gathered. This has to be a mistake. I checked everything 3 times, Nicholas said softly. And Evelyn, there's more. Bradley listed you as a silent beneficiary. If this ever surfaces, he'll try to blame you. The world tilted. Her husband had cheated on her, lied to her, humiliated her. But this was cruelty wrapped in calculation. Evelyn covered her mouth, trying to breathe. Nicholas leaned closer. You're not alone in this. I'm here. I'm going to help you clear your name. She looked at him through trembling lashes, unable to speak. But before either of them could say another word, Evelyn's phone buzzed. Bradley, we need to talk. Now. Not a request, a threat. The elevator ride up to the Park Avenue penthouse felt suffocating. Evelyn's pulse thundered beneath her coat as Bradley's text glared from her screen. We need to talk. Now. Not worry, not remorse. A command. Nicholas walked her to the building entrance, stopping beneath the marble archway. You don't have to go up there alone, he said gently. But Evelyn shook her head. I need to hear what lie he tells next. The doors shut behind her, sealing her into a silence she'd grown to fear. When she stepped inside the apartment, Bradley was already waiting, leaning against the kitchen island with a whiskey glass in hand, as if he owned the world and every truth within it. You met with him. His voice was flat, cold. It wasn't a question. Evelyn set her bag down slowly. You know why? Bradley laughed once, a humorless, brittle sound. So Nicholas Grant shows up after a decade, and you run into his arms the moment things get tough? That's who you are now? Anger simmered under her skin. That's who you made me become. Someone searching for truth anywhere except home. He slammed his glass onto the counter. You don't understand what you're playing with, Evelyn. That man wants to destroy me. He's using you. She met his gaze unflinching. Why would he need to? You're doing a great job destroying yourself. A flicker of panic crossed his face. Quick, sharp, unmistakable. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. What exactly did he tell you? Her heart pounded. Enough. Enough to know you touched my father's pension fund. The room went still. Color drained from Bradley's cheeks before he recovered, shaping his expression into something between outrage and disbelief. That's ridiculous, he snapped. Your father's finances were a mess long before I stepped in. If there were losses, it was because he refused to take my advice. Don't you dare pin this on me. Her throat tightened. He trusted you. I trusted you. Bradley's jaw ticked. You're emotional, and Nicholas is manipulating you. That's what he does. That's why I didn't want you around him back then. Her breath caught. Back then? You barely met him. He froze. A tell. A slip. A truth he never meant to reveal. Her voice lowered. What did you do, Bradley? He didn't answer, but the silence did. Before she could press further, his phone buzzed. One single vibration that made his expression collapse. He turned the screen away, but Evelyn saw enough. Zoe, and the message preview read, They're closing in. We have a problem. Evelyn didn't blink. She kept her eyes fixed on Bradley as the message preview from Zoe flashed across his lock screen like a confession written in neon. They're closing in. We have a problem. A problem. As if her father's suffering, her marriage, her sanity, were all just inconveniences in his carefully curated world. Bradley snatched his phone, turning away like a guilty man shielding a crime scene. You shouldn't be reading my messages. You shouldn't be hiding them, she replied. He exhaled sharply, pacing the kitchen with the agitation of someone cornered. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Zoe's panicking over a compliance issue. It has nothing to do with you. But the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Evelyn stepped closer, gripping the edge of the counter to steady herself. Bradley, look at me. He didn't. Look at me, she repeated, firmer this time. Finally he did. Anger, fear, and something else swirling behind his eyes. Guilt. Deep, festering guilt. "Just tell me the truth," she whispered. "Did you touch that fund? Did you use my father's money to cover your losses?" Bradley's jaw twitched. "You don't know what you're talking about. And Nicholas, he's feeding you lies because he's always wanted—" "What?" she cut in. "Always wanted what?" Bradley hesitated 1 second too long. The truth hovered between them like smoke. "You think I didn't notice?" he snapped suddenly. "The way he looked at you? The way he followed your work? He was obsessed with you, Evelyn, and you loved the attention." Her stomach dropped. "What attention? We barely spoke after that conference." "Exactly," Bradley said, stepping closer. "He never stopped wanting you. Men like him don't." The accusation washed over her, bitter and hollow. "How dare you," she whispered. "You betray me, lie to me, steal from my family. And now you're rewriting history to make yourself the victim?" He reached out, gripping her arm a little too tightly. "I'm trying to save us." "There is no us anymore," she said, pulling away. Before either could speak again, Bradley's phone buzzed once more, this time vibrating violently against the marble counter. Zoe again. "You need to fix this before it blows up. They found the transfers." Bradley's face went ghost white, and Evelyn knew. She wasn't dealing with infidelity. She was dealing with a man seconds away from losing everything. Bold cliffhanger, and he would drag her down with him if she didn't escape first. Evelyn left the penthouse before Bradley could stop her. Her chest tightened as she stepped into the cold Manhattan air, but the icy wind felt cleaner than the suffocating truth inside that apartment. She walked without direction until the city noise softened into background static. She needed space. She needed clarity. But New York offered neither. Her phone buzzed again, an unknown number this time. She froze, then answered. "Evelyn Hartman?" A woman's voice, smooth, calculated, familiar. "Zoe?" Evelyn whispered. A soft laugh slipped through the speaker. "I see Bradley hasn't changed your number. That's convenient." Evelyn's fingers tightened around her phone. "What do you want?" Zoe exhaled sharply, as if annoyed Evelyn didn't already know. "To warn you and to give you a choice." "A choice," Evelyn repeated, disbelief coloring every syllable. "Yes," Zoe said coolly. "Either you convince Bradley to keep me protected, or everything blows up. For all of us." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about? You think Bradley is careful?" Zoe scoffed. "He's reckless. He left a trail a mile long. And guess who he put as the secondary signer on 2 transfers? The world tilted. "Me," Evelyn whispered. "That's right," Zoe said. "So unless you want the SEC knocking on your door, you'll tell him to play nice." Evelyn closed her eyes, bracing herself against a nearby wall. "You framed me." "You were useful," Zoe corrected. "Besides, don't act surprised. Bradley's been planning this fallback for years." Her pulse roared in her ears. "Why are you telling me this now?" Zoe's voice lowered. "Because Bradley's panicking, and when he panics, he gets sloppy. I'm not going down for his mistakes, so help me, or stay out of my way." "That's not a choice," Evelyn said. "It's the only one you're getting." Zoe ended the call before Evelyn could breathe another word. The cold seeped into her bones. Bradley hadn't just betrayed her. He'd used her name, her identity, to protect himself. She felt sick. Her father's face flashed in her mind. How gentle he was. How he apologized for debts he never should have carried. And Bradley had known. He had watched her grieve while hiding the truth. A slow, burning resolve formed in Evelyn's chest. No more crying. No more pleading. No more accepting scraps of explanations. She wiped her tears away. Bold cliffhanger. It was time to turn the tables, because if Zoe thought Evelyn was weak, she was about to learn how wrong she was. Evelyn walked through the city as if her legs were moving on instinct, not will. The winter air bit at her cheeks, but she barely felt it. Zoe's words replayed on loop, each one cutting deeper than the last. "You were useful. You'll tell him to play nice. He put your name on the transfers." Her life wasn't just falling apart. It was being dismantled with intention. By the time she reached her small temporary studio in Brooklyn, her hands were trembling so badly she could barely unlock the door. The moment she stepped inside, the weight of it all collapsed onto her chest. Her father, her marriage, her reputation, her identity. She sank onto the edge of the bed, burying her face in her hands. A low, broken sob escaped before she could swallow it back. For a moment, just a moment, she let herself shatter. But pain, real pain, doesn't leave you empty. It forges something new. Her father's voice echoed faintly in her memory. When people show you what they are, Evie, believe them the first time. Bradley had shown her. Zoe had shown her. Now it was her turn. She wiped her tears and reached for her MacBook Air. Fingers still shaky, she pulled up the financial records Nicholas sent earlier. Now, with Zoe's confession, the puzzle pieces snapped together into something far more sinister. Bradley hadn't accidentally involved her. He had built the entire scheme around her. Her identity, her signature, her career, her silence. A surge of heat rushed through her veins. Not rage, but revelation. She wasn't the victim of this story. She was the key to undoing it. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Nicholas. She hesitated, then answered. Evelyn. His voice was gentle but grounded. I've been worried. Did you get home safe? She swallowed hard. Nicholas. I think I know what Bradley's trying to do. Tell me. So she did. Everything. Zoe's threat, the transfers, the forged access. Nicholas didn't interrupt. When she finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Then, Evelyn, this isn't just unethical, it's criminal. And if Zoe turns on him first, she'll try to pin the entire scheme on you. I know, her voice didn't shake this time. Then listen carefully, Nicholas said. You need to protect yourself. Starting tonight. Evelyn inhaled deeply. For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt something return to her chest. A pulse of strength, a flicker of fire, bold cliffhanger, because Nicholas had a plan. And it began with exposing Bradley in a place he believed he was untouchable. Evelyn sat upright on the edge of her bed, clutching the phone as Nicholas's voice dropped into a lower, calmer tone. The tone of a man who wasn't guessing. He already knew what had to be done. Bradley won't collapse on his own, Nicholas said. He built too many walls, too many escape routes, too many people who owe him favors. Evelyn swallowed. Then how do we break him? You don't, Nicholas replied. We do. Those two words, simple, steady, unraveled something knotted inside her. For months she'd felt alone, unheard, unseen. Now someone not only believed her, but stood beside her with unwavering certainty. Evelyn, listen carefully, he continued. The board at Coleman Huxley is meeting tomorrow morning. Bradley plans to propose a restructuring that will bury the pension fund discrepancies even deeper. If he succeeds, no one will listen to you. Not the SEC, not internal auditors, not even the courts. Her pulse hammered. That means, she whispered, tomorrow is the last chance. The only chance, Nicholas confirmed. He laid out the plan piece by piece. Strategic, surgical, brilliant. The kind of plan only someone who understood both finance and human behavior could craft. You need documentation, he said. Everything Bradley touched under your name. Everything Zoe admitted. Everything your father's lawyers filed. That could take weeks, Evelyn said, panic rising. You already have more than you think, Nicholas replied. And by tomorrow, you'll have enough to make the board look at Bradley the way he's always feared, as a liability. Evelyn closed her eyes, letting his confidence steady her. It felt like inhaling after months underwater. But you can't confront him, Nicholas warned. Not directly, not yet. Why not? Because Bradley is most dangerous when he thinks he's losing control, Nicholas said. He'll lash out, and the first person he'll throw under the bus is you. The only way to win is to let him believe you're still afraid of him. The idea turned her stomach, but she understood. He needs to think he still owns the narrative, Nicholas added. And tomorrow, in that room, we take it from him. Evelyn opened her eyes. For the first time, she didn't feel broken. She felt focused, determined, alive. Thank you, she whispered. There was a short pause, gentle, waited. Evie, you've been carrying this alone for a long time, Nicholas said. Let me help you carry the rest. Her breath caught at the softness in his voice. But before she could respond, a loud knock shook her door. She froze. Bold cliffhanger. Because it wasn't Nicholas. It was Bradley. And he wasn't alone. The pounding on Evelyn's door grew louder. Sharp, impatient, aggressive. She froze, breath caught between her ribs. Bradley never came to Brooklyn. He treated her temporary studio like an insult. A reminder she'd left the penthouse he believed she owed him. But tonight, he came. And he wasn't alone. She could hear a second set of footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. "Evelyn, open the damn door!" Bradley barked. Her pulse hammered. She muted her phone. Nicholas was still on the line and tucked it beneath a pillow. Then she inhaled slowly, forcing her face into something calm, unreadable. When she opened the door, Bradley pushed inside without waiting for permission. The man behind him followed, tall, burly. Corporate security, one of the guards from the Coleman Huxley building. Evelyn's stomach twisted. "Since when do you travel with security?" she asked quietly. Bradley ignored the jab and began pacing like a caged animal. "You met with Nicholas, then Zoe calls me freaking out. Now the board is asking questions. What the hell did you tell him?" The security guard closed the door, standing against it like a boulder blocking her escape. "I didn't tell Nicholas anything," Evelyn said, voice steady. "He came to me because of what you did." Bradley rounded on her. "I swear to God, Evelyn, if you don't shut this down..." "I'm not shutting down anything." The shock on his face lasted only a second before morphing into rage. He grabbed her arm, too tightly. "You think you can ruin me?" Bradley hissed. "You think you can walk away after everything I've built for us?" "For us?" Evelyn snapped, yanking her arm back. "You built a lie and forced me to live inside it." Bradley's jaw clenched. "You're going to march into that boardroom tomorrow and deny every accusation. You're going to clear my name. And you're going to do it because if this blows up..." His eyes glinted with cruel satisfaction. "You're going down with me." Evelyn didn't flinch. Not this time. "I'm not covering for you anymore." The words sliced through the air. Bradley stepped closer, lowering his voice to a dangerous whisper. "You don't have a choice." But before he could continue, the security guard's phone buzzed. He glanced down, then stiffened. "Sir," he said quietly, "you need to see this." Bradley snatched the phone, and his face drained of all color, because splashed across the screen was a breaking news alert. Coleman Huxley under investigation. Internal whistleblower. Leaks confidential documents. Evelyn's heart stopped. She hadn't leaked anything. Nicholas hadn't either, which meant bold cliffhanger. Someone else had just turned Bradley's world into a battlefield, and the war had officially begun. Bradley stared at the breaking news alert on the guard's phone as if the screen had personally betrayed him. His breath hitched, his expression unraveling in real time. This can't be happening," he muttered. Evelyn felt the floor tilt beneath her feet, but she kept her face still. "I didn't leak anything," she said quietly. Bradley whipped around. "Don't lie to me. You and Nicholas..." "We didn't," she repeated. "And if you weren't so busy destroying everything, you'd know that." Bradley's mind spun visibly, gears misfiring in panic. He jabbed at his phone, dialing someone with shaking fingers. "Zoe, pick up, pick up." Voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. The guard shifted uneasily. "Sir, leadership is asking for you. The board wants a statement." Bradley snapped, "Not now," before turning back to Evelyn. His eyes were wild, almost frantic. "Do you understand what this means? If those documents are real, if the transfers are out, my entire career is gone. My reputation, everything." "Then maybe," Evelyn said softly, "you shouldn't have built your life on other people's suffering." He lunged toward her, stopping only when the guard stepped subtly between them. Something Bradley didn't seem to notice, but Evelyn did. A small crack in his power. Bradley clutched his hair in both hands. "It has to be Zoe," he muttered. "She was the only other one who had access. She must be turning on me to save herself." Evelyn folded her arms. "That's what happens when you partner with snakes. They bite everyone, eventually. Bradley staggered to the couch and dropped onto it, shaking. This isn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to help me, and you were supposed to stay quiet. The words chilled her. Stay quiet, like her father had. Like she had for years, not anymore. Suddenly, Bradley's phone buzzed. One single vibration. He grabbed it with desperate hands. A message from Zoe. You forced my hand. Survive this on your own. Bradley's face collapsed. He whispered a curse under his breath. Evelyn stepped back, a strange mixture of fear and clarity washing over her. Zoe had turned. The leak was real, and Bradley was unraveling faster than anyone could stop him. But then, something shifted. The guard's phone buzzed next. He glanced down, froze, then lifted his eyes to Evelyn with unexpected hesitation. Ma'am, he said quietly, there's someone downstairs asking to see you. Bradley jerked upright. Who? The guard swallowed. Nicholas Grant, and he says it's urgent. Bold cliffhanger, and he's not alone. The guard stepped aside as Evelyn hurried toward the stairwell, her heartbeat pulsing like a war drum. Bradley shouted after her, but she didn't stop. She needed air. She needed distance from his madness. She needed answers from the only person left who wasn't trying to manipulate her. When she descended into the lobby, she froze. Nicholas wasn't alone. Standing beside him was Margaret Hale, former senior auditor at Coleman Huxley, the woman who mysteriously resigned 6 months earlier amid rumors of health issues. Evelyn had always admired her integrity, the kind of woman who didn't bend, even when pressured. Now Margaret looked older, thinner, and afraid. Nicholas stepped forward gently. Evelyn, this is the whistleblower. Evelyn's breath caught. Margaret offered a strained smile. I'm sorry we're meeting under these circumstances, dear, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. Evelyn looked between them. You leaked the documents? Margaret nodded. I kept quiet for as long as I could. Bradley threatened my job, my pension. He said he'd make sure I never worked in finance again if I spoke up. Her voice shook. And he forged signatures. Not just yours, mine too. Evelyn's knees weakened, and Nicholas caught her elbow before she could stumble. There's more, Margaret whispered. Zoe wasn't working with Bradley out of loyalty. She was planted by one of the board members who wanted leverage. They were waiting for the right moment to bring Bradley down. Evelyn's jaw tightened. So I was just collateral damage. No, Margaret said, eyes softening. You were the perfect scapegoat, young, competent, invisible to the executives who only see what benefits them. Bradley needed someone with a clean track record to pin everything on, and he needed someone he could control. Evelyn's stomach twisted. And Zoe? Nicholas stepped in. She's trying to save herself now, but she's unstable. And if Bradley corners her, she'll drag Evelyn down to stay afloat. Evelyn swallowed hard. So what now? Margaret exchanged a look with Nicholas. The board meeting tomorrow is your chance, Nicholas said. Margaret will testify. I'll present the financial evidence. But you, he held her gaze, you will expose Bradley's motive, the personal side, the part only you know. Evelyn shook her head. He'll deny everything. Let him, Nicholas replied. He's already unraveling, and the more he talks, the more he'll incriminate himself. Before Evelyn could respond, the lobby doors swung open. Bradley stood there, disheveled, desperate, furious. His voice echoed across the marble floor. Evelyn, get away from them! Bold cliffhanger. Because for the first time he realized she had something he could no longer control. Power. Bradley's voice ricocheted across the marble lobby like a warning shot. People turned. The security guard stiffened. Even the receptionist shrank back as his gaze swept the room with the frantic dominance of a man losing control. Evelyn didn't move toward him, not this time. Nicholas stepped slightly in front of her, not aggressively, but protectively, as if he could sense Bradley's unraveling intentions. We're done here, Bradley snapped at Margaret. You're finished in this industry, you hear me? Finished. Margaret flinched but didn't step back. I've been finished ever since you used my name to cover your theft, she said calmly. You took my pension, Bradley. You took years of my work. Bradley jabbed a finger at her. You were sloppy. I fixed your mistakes. No, Evelyn cut in, stepping forward. You exploited her mistakes just like you exploited mine. His eyes whipped toward her, dark and livid. You think you can stand there with him? He pointed sharply at Nicholas. And pretend you're suddenly some kind of hero? You're nothing without me, Evelyn. Nothing. Nicholas tensed, but Evelyn lifted a hand, stopping him. She faced Bradley fully now, and for the first time, she wasn't looking at her husband. She was looking at the man who had dismantled her life piece by piece and expected gratitude for it. You don't get to define my worth anymore, she said quietly. Bradley scoffed. You're delusional. You don't know how to survive without me. I've carried you through every promotion, every opportunity. That's the lie you told me, she replied, and I believed it because I trusted you, because I loved you. A murmur rippled through the lobby. Passers-by slowed, sensing the fracture widening. Bradley stepped closer, lowering his voice to a venomous whisper. If you go through with this tomorrow, I swear I will ruin you. Everything you've built, everything you think you can still salvage, I will burn it all down. Evelyn didn't blink. You already did, she whispered. And I'm the one left sifting through the ashes, not you. For the first time, Bradley faltered. It wasn't fear, it was recognition. The chain he had wrapped around her for 12 years had finally snapped. Nicholas stepped forward. This conversation is over, but Bradley wasn't finished. He pointed at Evelyn, trembling with fury. You think you're walking into that board meeting? Think again. I'll make sure you never get through those doors. Bold cliffhanger. And in that moment, Evelyn realized he wasn't threatening her future. He was threatening her safety. Evelyn didn't return to her Brooklyn studio that night. Nicholas insisted she stay at a secure residence owned by his firm, an apartment overlooking the Hudson, discreet and far from Bradley's reach. She wanted to argue, to insist she could handle herself, but the look in Nicholas's eyes told her everything. Bradley wasn't threatening her career anymore. He was threatening her. Inside the quiet apartment, Evelyn sat near the window, watching the city lights shimmer across the water. She wrapped her arms around herself, fighting the tremor in her chest. The chaos of the day pressed into her ribs, threatening to break her open. Nicholas approached quietly, placing a cup of chamomile tea beside her. You haven't said a word since we arrived. I'm trying not to panic, she whispered. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees. What Bradley did isn't your fault. What he's doing now isn't your responsibility. But the transfers, my name, my father, she swallowed hard. It feels like everything he touched became poison. Nicholas's expression softened. Then tomorrow, we detoxify the entire system. Despite herself, a tiny laugh slipped from her. Weak, tired, but real. He leaned back slightly, studying her. You know, the Evelyn I met years ago would have never let someone like Bradley break her. She looked up, startled. You were brilliant, he said softly. The kind of woman who could dismantle a financial model in 30 minutes and still make the entire room feel like they learned something from her. If anyone could bury Bradley Coleman, it's you. Her eyes warmed with unshed tears. You make me sound stronger than I am. No, he replied gently. I'm just describing the part of you he tried to erase. For a moment, silence held the room, not empty but charged, comforting, necessary. But then Nicholas's tone shifted, sober, strategic. We need to go over your statement for tomorrow. Margaret will handle the forensic evidence. I'll present the structural inconsistencies. You, he pointed gently toward her, will expose motive. The personal trail Bradley left everywhere he went. Evelyn nodded slowly. And Zoe? Nicholas exhaled. She's unpredictable. She might testify, or she might disappear. Either way, Bradley is spiraling, and dangerous men make desperate moves. Evelyn stared at the glowing skyline. He said he'd stop me from walking through those doors. Nicholas's jaw tightened. Let him try. She looked at him, really looked, and saw a steadiness she'd forgotten existed in other people. Someone who didn't want to control her, but to stand beside her. For the first time that day, she felt something new. Hope, bold cliffhanger. Tomorrow she wouldn't walk into that boardroom alone, but someone else would be waiting there too, and not everyone would walk out unscathed. Morning arrived with a cold, metallic stillness, the kind that wrapped itself around Manhattan's glass towers like a warning. Evelyn stepped out of the black sedan Nicholas arranged, dressed in a tailored navy suit that made her stand taller than she felt. Her pulse fluttered as she approached the colossal entrance of Coleman Huxley. She wasn't walking into a meeting, she was walking into a battlefield. Nicholas walked beside her, calm and controlled. Margaret followed closely, clutching a folder stacked with evidence. Every step echoed with purpose. But Evelyn felt eyes on her, not just curious employees, not just anxious executives, predatory eyes, Bradley's. He stood near security, giving orders like a man holding on to the last thread of his kingdom. His face was pale, tight, furious. The moment he spotted her, he strode toward them. "You're not going upstairs," Bradley snapped, blocking her path. Nicholas stepped forward. "She has every right to be here." Bradley scoffed. "You think a charity case and a disgraced auditor are going to take me down?" "Evelyn, don't do this. You're throwing your life away." "No," she said firmly. "I'm reclaiming it." He reached for her arm, but security, his own security, hesitated. They looked torn, conflicted. Someone had already warned them something was coming. Bradley lowered his voice, trembling with desperation. "Evie, if you walk into that room, everything I've built will collapse." She met his eyes with devastating calm. "Then maybe you shouldn't have built it on lies." For a moment, Bradley's mask cracked. Rage, fear, and something uglier flickered across his face. But before he could say another word, a new voice sliced through the tension. "Bradley." Everyone turned. Zoe Lennox stepped out of a second elevator, hair sleek, sunglasses on, wearing a confidence that didn't match the chaos she'd caused. Cameras flashed behind her. She'd brought the press. Bradley's face drained of color. "What are you doing?" he hissed. Zoe smiled sweetly. "Ending this. You threw me under the bus, so I brought a bigger one." She lifted her phone. "One interview, one statement, and every transfer you forge becomes public record." Executives began whispering. Phones buzzed. Security froze. The entire boardroom floor shifted from order to panic. Evelyn's heart pounded, but for once, not from fear. This wasn't chaos. This was justice waking up. Nicholas leaned toward her. "It's time." They walked past Bradley as he shouted her name, but no one moved to stop her. Bold cliffhanger, because behind those boardroom doors, Bradley's final undoing and Evelyn's rebirth was already waiting. The boardroom felt colder than the rest of the building. Sterile glass walls, a long mahogany table, leather chairs filled with powerful men and women who believed they had already seen every scandal imaginable. They hadn't. Evelyn stepped inside with Nicholas and Margaret at her sides. Conversations halted. Dozens of eyes turned toward her, some curious, some judgmental, some already calculating. Bradley burst in seconds later, breathless and sweating, tie crooked, the polished veneer he wore for years cracking apart in front of the very people whose respect he craved most. "Before this farce begins," Bradley barked, "I want it on record that my wife is emotionally unstable and being manipulated by—" "Sit down, Bradley," Chairman Whitcomb ordered, without looking at him. A small tremor of satisfaction passed through Evelyn. For the first time, someone besides her was telling him no. Nicholas placed a thick binder of evidence on the table. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for convening. We have reason to believe CFO Bradley Coleman falsified records, redirected pension fund assets, and used Mrs. Hartman's identity as a shield." Gasps rippled across the room. Bradley's face twisted. "This is absurd." "Quiet," Whitcomb snapped. Margaret stood next. Her voice wavered at first, but strength grew with every word. "I was forced to resign after questioning unexplained fund transfers. I was threatened, intimidated, and my signature was forged." Shock deepened, but it was Evelyn the board leaned toward, as if sensing she held the final piece. She rose slowly, meeting every pair of eyes in the room. "For 12 years, she began, I believed my husband was a good man. I believed the stories he told me. But when my father was dying, he cried because he thought he had failed me. when the truth was sitting at my dinner table every night. Her voice didn't shake. It resonated. Bradley used my name to hide his crimes. He let me grieve a burden that wasn't mine. And when he realized I knew the truth, he threatened to destroy me. A board member muttered, "Unbelievable." Bradley slammed his hand on the table. "She's lying. She's doing this because she's jealous of Zoe. The doors flew open. Zoe strode in, flanked by legal counsel and 2 investigators. Her statement was brutal, precise, damning. "Everything they said is true," she told the board, "and I have the messages, the recordings, and the transfer orders to prove it." Bradley's mouth fell open. His last ally. The woman he thought he controlled had turned on him completely. Bold cliffhanger, and the board was now ready to pass judgment, one that would end Bradley Coleman's empire forever. Silence slammed into the boardroom the moment Zoe finished speaking. The kind of silence that swallows oxygen, the kind that precedes consequences. Bradley looked around desperately, waiting for someone, anyone to defend him. But every face at the table had shifted from doubt to disgust. Years of charm, manipulation, and manufactured influence disintegrated beneath the weight of undeniable truth. Chairman Whitcomb cleared his throat. "Mr. Coleman, do you have any response?" Bradley rose, chest heaving. "This is a setup. They're conspiring. Nicholas has always wanted my position. And Evelyn, my own wife, has been emotionally unstable for years." Evelyn's hands tightened at her sides, but she didn't flinch. The board did. A woman at the far end leaned forward. "Mr. Coleman, we reviewed the recordings Ms. Lennox submitted. Your voice is unmistakable." Another member added, "And the transfers link back to your authorization codes. Your explanations no longer hold." Bradley's composure cracked. No, you don't understand. Zoe lied. Evelyn is lying. They all..." "Enough," Whitcomb said sharply. "Motion to suspend Bradley Coleman effective immediately pending full investigation." "I second that. All in favor?" Hands rose one after another, a tidal wave of judgment. Bradley choked on a breath as the final hand lifted. The vote was unanimous. Security approached, but he whipped away from them, eyes burning into Evelyn with a fury stripped of dignity. "You," he hissed. "You did this to me." Evelyn held his gaze steadily. "You did this to yourself." He staggered back as if struck. For the first time since she'd met him, Bradley Coleman looked small, a collapsing star. "You were supposed to protect me," he muttered, voice breaking. "You were my wife. And you were supposed to be a good man," she answered softly. "But you chose not to be." Security escorted him toward the door. But just before he was taken out, Bradley twisted violently, shouting across the room, "This isn't over. You think they'll believe you once I'm out? You think you can rebuild anything without me? You're nothing without..." The door slammed shut, cutting him off. Silence returned. But this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was liberating. Zoe exhaled shakily. Margaret leaned into her chair. Nicholas looked at Evelyn with a softness she wasn't ready to absorb. But Evelyn didn't sit. She stood tall, steady, breathing hard. For the first time in years, she felt the chains fall from her ribs, her throat, her life. Bold cliffhanger. And she had no idea the board's next words would change her future forever. The boardroom remained suspended in thick electric silence long after Bradley was removed. It wasn't fear anymore. It wasn't chaos. It was shift. The kind that happens when a structure cracks and light pours through. Chairman Whitcomb folded his hands, studying Evelyn with an expression she couldn't decipher. "Mrs. Hartman," he began, "you've been through something no one in your position should ever experience. And yet, you walked into this room with maturity and transparency. That matters." Evelyn blinked, unsure whether she should speak. Another board member leaned forward. "We reviewed your performance evaluations. Stellar, consistent, undervalued." Margaret nodded vigorously. "She carried entire divisions, and Bradley took credit. Most of us knew, but no one wanted to challenge him." Nicholas glanced toward Evelyn. This was the validation she had deserved for years. Then Whitcomb continued, "In light of today's findings, we will begin a full restructuring of the financial oversight team. We need leadership capable of rebuilding trust. He paused. Mrs. Hartman, would you consider stepping into an interim role as acting vice president of financial integrity? Evelyn's breath caught. The room blurred. Not from panic, from disbelief. She had expected freedom. She had not expected opportunity. Me, she whispered. Bradley tried to frame me. My name is still connected to, and you exposed it, Whitcomb interrupted. You protected the company more than he ever did. Another board member added, you have Nicholas Grant's support, Margaret Hale's testimony, and more integrity than half the people who've sat at this table. Evelyn swallowed hard. I don't know what to say. Nicholas spoke softly, not as an advisor, but as someone who had always believed in her. Say yes, Evelyn. Her heart fluttered, an unfamiliar mixture of fear, pride, and long-buried ambition rising like a tide. Before she could answer, the boardroom doors creaked open once more. A new figure stepped inside. Federal investigators. Apologies, the lead agent said, but we need Mrs. Hartman for formal statements regarding her cooperation. Another wave of whispers erupted, but the agent continued. And additionally, we want to request her involvement as a protected cooperating witness. Her testimony is central. Protected witness. Important. Words she never imagined would describe her. Whitcomb glanced back at her. Your call, Mrs. Hartman, but whatever you choose, know this. Bradley can't touch you anymore. Evelyn inhaled deeply. For the first time, she felt her father would have been proud. Bold cliffhanger. And as she prepared to leave with the investigators, Nicholas caught her hand, because he had something life-changing to tell her next. Evelyn paused at the boardroom doorway as investigators waited patiently behind her. Nicholas still held her hand, firm, steady, warm. She hadn't expected comfort, not today, not from anyone, but something in his eyes made her heart stumble. He cleared his throat softly. Evelyn, before you go, there's something I should have told you a long time ago. Her breath hitched. The chaos, the boardroom, the downfall of Bradley, all of it faded into a quiet hum. Nicholas, she whispered, what is it? He exhaled a slow, weighted breath. When we met all those years ago, I didn't just admire your work. I admired you. More than I should have. More than I ever admitted. Evelyn blinked, stunned. She remembered that conference. She remembered his kindness, but she never allowed herself to consider anything more. She'd already been with Bradley. I stepped back, Nicholas continued, voice low but sure, because you seemed happy, because you were married, and because the last thing you needed was another complication. His eyes softened. But when your name surfaced in this investigation, the thought of you being dragged into something so dark, Evelyn, it terrified me. Her throat tightened. You helped me because you felt guilty? No. He stepped closer. I helped you because I've cared about you for years, because I couldn't stand by and watch you drown in a mess someone else created. Emotion burned behind her eyes. She looked away briefly, grounding herself as the weight of his words settled into her chest. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't want you to, he admitted. Not while you were hurting, not while you were still trying to survive him. Silence stretched between them, gentle, not heavy. For the first time in a long time, Evelyn felt seen, truly seen. Nicholas, she began softly, my life is still a storm. I don't know where I'm going to land. That's okay, he said. I'm not asking for answers right now. I'm just telling you that, when the storm clears, I'll be here. Her chest warmed with something she hadn't felt in years. Hope, fragile but real. Before she could respond, an investigator stepped forward. Mrs. Hartman, we're ready when you are. Evelyn nodded but kept her eyes on Nicholas for one final heartbeat. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Nicholas squeezed her hand gently, releasing it with purpose. Go finish this, then come back and begin something new. Bold cliffhanger. But as Evelyn walked toward the elevators, armed with truth and evidence, she didn't know Bradley was planning one last desperate move, one that could destroy everything she'd just gained. The federal hearing room was stark and quiet. a world away from the glass towers of Manhattan. Evelyn sat across from investigators, evidence stacked neatly in front of her, documents Bradley forged, recordings Zoe provided, and financial trails Margaret uncovered. She spoke clearly, her voice steady, every word carving the truth into stone. When the session ended, the lead investigator nodded with something like respect. "Mrs. Hartman, your testimony was decisive. With this, Bradley Coleman's indictment is inevitable." She exhaled slowly. It was over. Really over. Back outside, the winter sun warmed her face. Nicholas waited near the steps, hands in his pockets, eyes never leaving her. "How did it go?" he asked. "It's done," she whispered. "He's going to face everything he ran from." A softness spread across Nicholas's expression, not triumph, but pride. "You did that, Evelyn. You saved yourself." She opened her mouth to respond, but a commotion erupted across the plaza. Two black SUVs screeched to a stop. Reporters surged forward. Cameras flashed. And through the chaos, Bradley was dragged out in handcuffs, his hair disheveled, his suit wrinkled, his arrogance shattered. "Evelyn!" he screamed, struggling against agents. "You did this! You think you've won!" Reporters swarmed. Agents tightened their grip. But Bradley kept shouting, wild, broken, defeated. "You'll regret this. You'll see what happens when—" The car door slammed, cutting him off. Silence swept across the plaza. Evelyn didn't move. She stared at the SUV as it pulled away, carrying the man who once promised to love her and nearly ruined her into a future he had earned entirely by himself. For the first time in years, her shoulders relaxed. The weight was gone. Nicholas approached gently. "This isn't the end, you know." "I know," she said softly. "It's the beginning." He hesitated, then took her hand, not possessively, not urgently, but with quiet sincerity. "A beginning you don't have to face alone. Not anymore." She looked at him, really looked, and something warm settled into her chest. Something steady, something possible. Weeks later, Evelyn stood on the balcony of her new office. Her division, her team, her future. The skyline glowed gold against the Hudson as she reviewed the final letter, granting her the permanent role of vice president. Behind her, Nicholas touched the doorframe. "Ready to celebrate?" She smiled. "Yes," she said. "For the first time, I really am." Final line, catharsis. Because Evelyn Hartman didn't just survive betrayal, she rebuilt her life, reclaimed her power, and stepped boldly into a future she finally chose for herself. Well, that brings our story to a close. And if you're still here with me right now, my friend, then something in Evelyn's journey must have touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Maybe it reminded you of a moment you survived when you thought you couldn't. Maybe it reminded you of who you're becoming. Life isn't always gentle. People betray, seasons break us down, and sometimes the person we trusted most becomes the storm we weren't prepared for. But as Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The fire within us burns brighter when fueled by challenge." Evelyn didn't rise because life was easy. She rose because she refused to stay small. And you can too. If her story taught us anything, it's this. You deserve honesty, you deserve peace, and you deserve a future that belongs to you, not to the people who hurt you. So if this journey resonated with you even a little, don't leave quietly. Hit the like button, share this story with someone who might need it, and subscribe so you never walk through these stories alone. We're right here with you, always. This story is a fictional narrative created solely for entertainment and emotional reflection. All characters, events, and situations are imagined and not based on real individuals or real companies. The purpose of this content is to explore themes of resilience, personal growth, and the human capacity to overcome adversity. While the story may touch on corporate settings, legal matters, or emotional experiences, these elements are dramatized and should not be interpreted as factual guidance, real accusations, or depictions of actual organizations. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental. Viewers are encouraged to enjoy this as a creative piece designed to inspire empathy and reflection. Thank you for watching, supporting the channel, and being part of this storytelling journey.